Okay, we're all good. All right, so I put an agenda together, but I did it like 5 o'clock this morning. I'm thinking, oh, we have a meeting. So I did throw it together. I realized probably the thing to maybe focus on is the survey, but let me pull that up so we can look and agree on what we want to cover tonight, because it can be shifted. But has everybody read the minutes, the really stellar minutes from Kim?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
Nice work.
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks,
And these are informal meetings, so I mean, as long as there's no changes in it, we'll just move on to the next. The Google Drive. So I have the Google Drive open here. Because I want you to see, or I can open it here. No.
You may have to go to a separate.
I do. I have to go out and come back. Give me just a second. Okay, and I will do that.
I apologize. I don't know who everybody is associated with this lake.
Oh, you're fine. It's my error. Thank you. Because maybe while I'm finding the Google Drive opening, somebody will start the instructions. Maybe Kim.
I'd be happy to. I'm Kim Cameron. I also live on Song Lake. Kind of a new member to Song Lake in the last year or so. I'm involved in a number of things, not only the storm material here, but also the lake, the weed control on the lake, as well as being a member of the Song Lake Property Owners Association. So that's kind of me.
Pass it to Colleen.
Sure. I'm Colleen Sawadsky. We've been on Tully Lake for 25 or 30 years. I'm the president of the Tully Lake Property Owners Association and also a board member of the Kettle Lakes Association, also known as COFOCLA. I'm happy to be here. And so I will pass it over to my vice president, Jim.
I'm Jim. I've been on Tully Lake since 2012 and made the mistake of raising my hand to Colleen when she said we need a vice president. I'm teasing.
I know.
I work in the water quality field and I'm happy to help where I can. I still work full time, which is like 50, 60 hours a week. So,
Yeah, it's a lot.
Jim, thanks for being with us. What is the water quality field that you're in?
I'm an environmental engineer.
Okay.
We've done work on Onondaga Lake. We did a lot of water quality modeling to support the Onondaga County and their upgrades to the Metro wastewater treatment facility.
Great.
We've done a lot of work in the Finger Lakes, working on 9E plans, TMDLs, harmful algal blooms. I also do a lot of contaminated sediment type work around the country. And we work, my company, I founded it in 1998. We got 400 employees now in 30 offices in 17 states.
Nice.
So I know you sound really busy, Jim, but sometime I'd like to talk to you more about the delisting, the 303 delisting, and
Sure.
some other issues related to the consolidated assessment and listings methodology.
Yep.
Okay.
I can do that.
Jim, can I ask what's the name of your company? I'm sorry.
Anchor QEA. ANCHOR is in the anchor and QEA.
Okay, thanks.
There's about 35 of us in Liverpool.
Do you work with Andy Enoch?
Andy Enoch.
He's an environmental engineer too. I just wondered.
I've not heard, I don't know of him. Sorry. Amy.
Sorry. Oh, I interrupted too. I'm Amy. I'm from Little York Lake.
Amy, thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay. I'm Tarky. I'm on Song Lake. Currently president of the Kettle Lake Associations and also the New York State Federation of Lake Associations. So Seth?
Lisa Baldrich with the Crooked Lake Homeowners Association, and kind of trying to just branch a little bit out into Kofokla. So happy to be here. Thank you. And I'll pass it over to my Vice President, Tom Kappa.
I'm Tom Cap. I'm Vice President, as Seth said, of Crooked Lake, and also the treasurer of Kofokla Kettle Lakes. And that's about it.
And I'm Tom Spangenberg, another representative from Crooked Lake. I just joined recently with Tom to represent Crooked Lake for Kofokla.
I have to apologize because I wear hearing aids and I think I'm getting some feedback from somebody's speakers. And I keep wondering if it's mine, because mine are pretty cheap speakers. But does anybody else hear it, or is it just my hearing aid?
There is some
Hear it as
feedback.
well? Okay, all right. I don't know. We'll just work on it.
How about if we all just mute until we have
When
to?
we're not talking, that works.
Yeah.
Now we're going to find out if it's mine, but okay. So thank you all. There are other people that are that have signed up to be on this committee, but two of them from Song Lake, Jeff Krause and James Berry, have not yet joined the meetings, and I'm hoping they will once the open water season begins, which is soon. And then Sunny Battle, I think, from Tully Lake is also.
You know, I stopped by Sunny's house and I think Sunny will be getting reports and I will get information from him as needed. He's had some health issues and I think for now, I think Jim and I, we're okay for now.
Okay. Both representatives from Crooked Lake and the president are with us today, so that's awesome. Amy Hall, thank you. And I don't know if Don Fisher is just getting reports or if he'll join us, but who knows? We'll find out. Okay, thank you. So looking back at my screen, I'm going to share this. This is the Google Drive, and I know we went over this a little bit at the last meeting on the use of Google Drive. But you know, if you get into your Google Drive here, you should, as long as you're signed in, have this little thing shared with me. Whoever is sharing information with you will pop up, and ours is the storm management team. And Kim set this up earlier. So we've got subfolders, which include communications and pictures. The meeting minutes go in here. The small watershed grant storm response plan, which I uploaded. Jim, I uploaded your information there, and the Survey Monkey.
I've had some trouble getting into this Google Drive for some reason, and I think it might be the firewall on my work computer, but
Okay.
does somebody have to give me permission?
Yeah, I did. I sent that to you at your second request. When the first one didn't get you in, I sent another one with
Today?
your Gmail account. Yeah, at the Gmail. that
Okay,
you
I'll check
requested.
my junk mail. I
Okay,
might have
okay.
pretty aggressive.
Yeah,
spam
if you
filter.
continue to have issues, Jim, we'll make sure
Yeah,
that we
I'll
work
figure
out.
it out.
I was
Okay.
gonna say, or you could probably send something to me because I think I started the whole thing, so I can give you permission to get into everything, basically.
Yeah, it didn't reject it. It said it went to you. So hopefully it's there, but let
Right.
us know. Okay, and we'll work it out. So I just wanted to let everyone know we are compiling the information here, and I have that available on the agenda. Can you see my agenda now? Did it flip over?
No.
Okay, great. So that is right here. The link is in the agenda, and we'll be continuing to use this Zoom link unless someone takes over facilitation. Okay, so that's available right in that agenda. So I did have on here to review the ongoing mitigation and adaptation team. We've got 3 things here, but I think the key thing is the survey, because we'd like to have something for people to, or at least tell people about the survey at our Song Lake weed management meeting, which is this Saturday morning. So I'm hoping we can look at those questions and get more clarity. So far, it's been going really, really well. And the people that have been working on it are doing a great job. And then if we can skip these other two, and I'd like to give Jim a chance to present the stormwater response plan that he has been working on. And maybe those are the only two things and time for our next meeting that we have time for tonight, but those would be pretty substantial. So are there any, does anybody have any other feelings about the agenda as it is?
I have to apologize because for some reason, I must have just gone maverick and taken the things that were said about the survey that Amy started, that Kim suggested, and that Jim mentioned. And I must have just imagined that I should just add them to the one that I previously started, thinking it might have been in that drive, but it's not. So when we go over the survey, I took the responses that were there and kind of modified them and got them down to 12 questions with a possible title. So it's just this, they're very similar. They just merged a few things differently. So we can decide, maybe look at the one that's in your drive and then, you know, or look at the one that I took from all of them or whatever. But
Well, what I'll do, Colleen,
Yeah.
I love that you go maverick on us. So it's
Colleen?
but I will say, let's look at what we did get from
Yes.
what was
Yep,
compiled. and then we can
absolutely,
go
I
from there.
agree.
Okay.
You know, Colleen, you could just probably upload what you've got to the drive.
Yeah, I sent you guys the link to it. I just I'm not so good at uploading to the drive. I'm like, I kind of didn't go to that workshop and I've been retired. So sometimes it gets to the right place and sometimes it doesn't. This time it did not, so.
Well,
But let's look at yours. Let's look at it.
Yeah, this isn't mine. This is what other people have
Yeah,
worked
right.
on.
Let's look
I
at
think
ours.
Amy started
Right.
it, and then
Let's
there
look at
was
ours
good
for
input
sure.
from a lot of folks. So, Amy, do you want to speak to it? I'll turn my mic off, and do you want to just?
Sure. So this is just a cut and paste from SurveyMonkey, so that you guys could see the questions and the wording and things like that. Then there was a couple of emails, so I'd make some changes on those. And then I figured we would just all work together to figure out which ones to eliminate or combine or downsize. And it doesn't, the way it looks, it doesn't have to have a question title for everything. The way it looks in SurveyMonkey doesn't have that. So I don't know why the cut and paste did.
Basically, it's, you know, what lake do you live on? Whether it's just a check one, right? Unless you live on two. Do you want to? Do you want me to just scroll down and you speak to it? Because I'll turn my mic off then.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, just what lake do you live on? What are your concerns regarding significant storm events? Kim suggests should we list some concerns so this is not an open-ended question. I'm open to whatever you guys think. I think probably some concerns listed would be helpful. I don't think people actually always know what they're concerned about until they see wording. So what kind of concerns do we want to list as? And then I can also put a comment box under it, so if we don't list a concern, they can type in their words.
Amy, I'm going to scroll down and see if we have any that are listed.
Okay.
Let's see.
Water quality was a big theme on some of the questions.
Yeah.
So
Big question.
Maybe we should start
Quality
with
property.
this information and make sure that we've got the type of information that we need to either make some assessments or decisions.
Right. So maybe just go through it first.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So we'll go back to that in case it's not addressed.
Can I ask a
Okay.
question? Would it be helpful, because I have it open on my phone, the one that I went and modified these this afternoon. Would it be helpful as we go through it if I tell you how I sort of modified the ones that are here? Because I added some of that detail. I know Jim brought it up in one of his emails, and it just slightly formatted differently.
I feel like, Colleen, maybe we could get yours up because yours is the most recent edit.
And
You
it
can
just
send it
needs to
via
be,
email to somebody who can load it up, Colleen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can
yeah.
you email it to me and I'll load
I
it?
think I did email it, Kim, so check
Did
your
you? Okay.
emails, and I think it's there. While she's opening it, I can tell you that I came up with a draft heading title, because that was a missing piece. And what I came up with was Kettle Lakes Association Storm Response Team survey regarding significant rainstorm events. And I put it because when you live in Tully and you just use the word storm events, we don't want people to think maybe they could include snowstorm events, but specifically rainstorm events. So there were 1 or 2 places that I added rainstorm events, just so that there was no confusion. You'd like to believe everybody's clued into what we're talking about. So, and then underneath that, I had name and address optional. So that way, if somebody chose to tell us where they lived, it will help us analyzing the data, especially the data that Jim might be looking at that has to do with how much damage, monetary damage occurred at a property. So I included that and I used the word optional. Then it goes to the next question that Amy had, which is what lake do you live on? Tully, Crooked, Little Lake, or Song. And then I left it open-ended because Tarky asked it originally as an open-ended one just to kick it off. But as we go through the survey, there are specific examples of the types of damage that occurred. But rather than initially limiting people to that, we did follow, I think, Tarky's idea of having one open-ended question about what are your major concerns regarding significant rainstorm events?
Yeah, in the work that I've done, which is, I'll say limited, but enough, in putting surveys together, open-ended questions are encouraged.
Right, right.
So
So
Kim,
that,
do you have that to load up yet?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you give me access, I can load it up.
I did. I thought I did.
I thought
Okay,
I
wait a
did.
minute.
I don't know
Let me see
who
what
gives
my-
that.
You do have
Okay, yeah,
access.
I do have access. So
Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks.
There we go. There it is. You guys see it?
Yeah, and we'll go back to having Amy help us. I mean, I've done Survey Monkeys and I thought about importing it into a Survey Monkey just so we'd see it in that format, but we all get the idea for now. And this way you can see how I merged some things together to get it down to fewer questions. As you go down, going to Amy's question number 3, I blended Jim's question that took about 3 or 4 different questions and brought them together. How was your property damaged during the rainstorm, high flow conditions in the lakes in 21? Check all that apply. Not at all. Damage to aesthetics, property damage, and then there's examples: flooded basements, hot water heater, etc., recreational equipment. And there, instead of having a separate question about contamination of water and septic, it comes in there. But I added other please specify just in case we forgot something.
Yep, that's good.
Number 4, this one was Tom's question. And Tom, honestly, I don't know if we still get at what you were asking about. Tom had a question specifically about flooding coming down the mountain, which is different than rising water. So I tried to articulate that specifically. How has flood water flow coming down from an elevated area affected or damaged your property, if at all? For example, stormwater flooding down the mountain by Crooked Lake, etc. I don't know if that does it, but it's really different than rising water flooding.
Well, maybe we can adjust the wording on question 3 to accommodate all forms of damage by the rain during the rainstorm. High flow
Okay.
conditions in the lakes in 2021, or high flow in adjacent streams or something.
How would we word that? High, is that, do it high flow from adjacent streams or flooding? I mean, it came down Song Mountain Road, right? Like right friggin' down the road and
Yep.
took out enormous blocks of stone, which is like nothing we had on Tully Lake. So how do you word that?
And there wasn't damage to any of the lake properties, but on the other side of Song Mountain ski area, it blew out the road completely.
I know my
Yeah.
Tyler's family couldn't leave their property for a few days.
Yeah, and I would say that there, the stormwater that comes off Song Mountain, it does go into Crooked Lake, and it also comes down the back sides of the properties
Right.
that are right there on the road, on Song Lake Road. And I don't, especially those that are right on the other side of on the west side of the road. So it would be good to get some information from them about stormwater issues as well, coming off the
Okay.
mountain. Yeah.
Is
So
one
you're,
of the questions that we need to ask, did you observe stormwater from the mountain or the road entering any of your lake in any place? Because
And I
that's
think that-
nutrients coming into the lake that
right.
we might want to know about, because that's grant money.
So maybe if we wanted, we could either keep that question there, affected or damaged your property or the lake community at all, or we could, or the lake. I mean, we could do that, or we can do what Jim has suggested, which is change the header of that question to high flow conditions from rising water or flooding from elevated areas. You know, if we change it to those two terminologies, high flow conditions from rising waters or flooding from elevated, I don't know. What do you think?
Is it possible to see the rest of the survey? I'm
Yes.
sorry that I'm kind of late to the game, but
Yeah,
what
come
other
back to
things
that.
might be included?
Sure, okay. So going down, Jim was talking about a specific question related to grant money, and I know, Amy, we had that at the end, but since it was right after the question related to the property damage, I just bumped it up a little bit earlier. And then the sixth question was about, and I added state of emergency because that was what worried me. They used the language state of emergency at the wastewater treatment plant. Was the wastewater treatment plant state of emergency a concern for you? Was it? And then 7, if it was, what were your concerns? If not, skip to 8. And then 8 was the one, what would be important to be informed about during a significant rainstorm event, and how would be the best way to communicate to you? And I added quickly and efficiently with examples. So I was going to do it like a checklist like the rest of us had, but then there may be something there I didn't think of, like maybe walk next door and tell an old person. I don't know. You know, I mean, I added phone call on there, but I don't use phone calls anymore. So I don't know if that gets at what we wanted to do, which is how do we begin to create communication processes with people?
Hold on one sec. Amy, I have a sneaky feeling you're the one with the feedback. Can you mute for a second? We can check. I think it is you. Sorry.
So what do you think on that one? Do you think leaving that open, or do you think it should be a check all that apply?
I think with the examples there, that's fine.
Okay,
You could have a check mark and then other and specify
okay,
as
You can
well.
do it either way,
Get
yeah.
the same information, I think. Anything we can make it easy for
yeah,
people to just check
And I-
things off, we'll get probably more feedback.
We'll
Okay.
get more feedback, I think.
I agree. And I
Okay.
think you should consolidate the 2 above for the tele treatment plant. I think you can consolidate those 2.
okay. Mhm.
Just
Well,
one
let me ask you a question. What are we gonna do with that information? People say, hey, they were concerned. You know, what are we gonna do with that information? Should we? I mean, they're probably looking to us to say, why should we be concerned?
Exactly.
Right,
It's a
it's-
leading question, I think.
Hey, Jim, here's a quick thing that it's at some point, if we ever have an open piece of the agenda, I met with a person that is going to be doing a buffer just beyond the waste treatment plant as part of Tully Lake's original shoreline buffer program. Upper Susquehanna Coalition had 2 engineers go there with our person from Onondaga Soil and Water about what to do should we ever have another flood event like this. And they basically recommended building a wall, because there are places where there's only 3 feet of potential flow area.
Colleen,
So
I'm going to suggest we go back to that because I have some questions about that recommendation, serious questions
Okay.
about that recommendation. But I wonder, one of the things I was looking at, and Jim, it's a good question. What do we do with that information? And, you know, is it leading? I don't know, but maybe it is something that we can take back to the town and say, you know, these are the concerns, and maybe we need to reword
that's a
that.
good use of that information.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Okay.
we had, 50% of the respondents on this survey were very concerned about the wastewater treatment plant, as we all are.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
And it may be a little regional, Jim. It may be Tully Lake a little bit more than some of the other lakes, because we're getting their water, you know?
Right.
So, but I agree. If we get information about that, it would beg a conversation with the town.
Would you want on 6, would you want, I did not know about the wastewater treatment plant state of emergency?
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Is someone adding that knows how to do that?
Uh,
Amy, I'm looking right at you.
Yeah,
Or
because
Kim.
I don't think you gave me access to edit.
Okay, if Amy wants to add that, then she can help us modify this and we'll play with it. I agree. Maybe they didn't know.
I would also, just in terms of
Definitely didn't know.
when I've had to put surveys together and take results and communicate it and put it together, the open-ended questions, I agree, are really helpful. But it's so much easier when you have a selection response in order to put that data together. So I think a combination of selection responses and open-ended, where you get a few open-ended responses, great, because people might be thinking outside the box. But if you can kind of narrow it down, it's a lot easier to put the information together.
Absolutely. Thanks.
I also.
So I'm adding,
Go ahead.
So I'm adding, I was not aware of state of emergency. And what else?
I would
You
just
know,
say on 6, we should say something like, there was, during the storm event of August, blah, blah, blah. It was August, right?
That
The
was the
wastewater
August.
treatment plant entered a state of emergency over concerns of overflow into the adjacent creek. Were you aware of this? Yes or no? What are your concerns?
I like,
Yeah,
Be a little more specific.
I like that wording. That
State
was
the facts and then, right?
I like that because you explained what the emergency was rather than assuming that people knew. Okay.
And you know what? It gives a little education to people, like be aware maybe the
Right.
next time to be listening specifically for that. So that's good. I like that a lot.
I
And I
think
Okay, so sorry. So went into a state of emergency, and what came after that? I'm sorry.
I think it was August 18th. Amy, I'll go over that with you, okay? 'Cause
Okay.
I think I saved the news article for that.
Yeah.
And I'm-
Okay, perfect.
This is all going to be, I'm going to send out the link so that anybody who wants to watch this video can do that, and you can go back and.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
I think there is also a part of the question should be about it is possible that we should be educating people as to why a state of emergency at the waste treatment plant is an issue. My guess is most people don't know why it would be an issue.
And phrasing it the way I think it was Jim said, that it put the potential breach could have sent wastewater into the tributary to the south end of Tully Lake or something like that. If we educate them by sharing that bit of information in there, that would do it. And combining those, I think, is a good idea.
Yes, and I think of grant money going forward as being towards educating people about our system
Right.
and how climate change is affecting it. So if we can have evidence of that, proof that we need to educate them.
Right. Now,
Okay.
the question number 9 is an interesting one because it, like the other, the one with the elevated water coming down, it may not affect all the lakes, but Tully Lake has a significant issue with water impingement at both the north and south end of the lakes because of significant beaver damage. So it's not flowing out of the lake. So we ended up flooding significantly more than we would have if there was a flow. So that question is kind of specific to people that have, you know, impinged areas from nuisance animals. And then the second one would be impinged areas based on significant sedimentation. For instance, Upper Little York Lake had a lot of sedimentation just before the beaver dams that go from Tully Lake down into Goodall and into Little York. And what that's part of the reason I suspect why you have a dredger as part of your grant money that will be available to the other lakes to use. So over sedimentation for lakes, like not that are self-contained, maybe like Song Lake, but you know, ones that have a flow in and out like Little York and Tully, that impingement does affect flooding. So what do you think? Is it too specific to include those?
I think that the first part of the question, how have nuisance animals, beaver dams in particular, affected water levels on your properties, got 2 problems. And do you want to know, I thought this survey, and I'm pretty sure what we're interested in is getting feedback in regard to the effects of the storm water damage. And this could include pain in the butt, beaver dams and other animals and their nuisance, and you know, woodchucks and all that stuff. And I don't think we're interested in that. I think what we're interested in is the second part. If you have been affected, if your property has been affected by beaver dams, how, let's see, what's the effect of high water in combination with the beaver dams on your property? Something about, you know, that's an awkward wording, but I think you got the idea. So we don't want to hear about the other nuisance animals. I don't think we do we?
No.
You know,
What added value is there to a question like this? If you know that the beaver dams are causing a problem, I'm not sure that opinions from other people around the lake that may be unaware of that is added value to the search. Is it really giving us information that we don't already know?
I guess the reason why we're hoping, Seth, that goes back to a potential grant, we are hoping to do some significant dredging at the south end of the lake or areas where those dams are killing us. And
Right, I get
between
it,
Green
yeah.
Lake and Upper Tully Lake now, and then Upper Tully Lake to Tully Lake,
So-
and then south end into Goodall and Little York Lake, it's killing us.
I
So we're-
agree, but if
Yeah.
that's a fact and you ask the
Yeah.
people and 90% are unaware of that and 90% say, nope, it's not a problem,
Right,
then that goes against your grant funding.
That's right.
good
All right,
point.
maybe we
You
should
know, it's a
state it.
fact, it's a fact.
Okay,
Seth, I agree. We've got to be a little more specific, and we say something like the beaver dams on these lakes can affect, you know,
water levels.
water levels during storm events.
Mhm.
right.
How do you feel about controlling? I mean, let's get a survey and understand, you know, how people feel about eradicating some of the beavers, reducing the population. I think that's kind of what we struggle with, Colleen, right? Was
It's a huge issue.
some people who think, you know, that's fine, we got to live with them, and I get that. But if 75% of the people on the lake say, no, it's a big issue, we got to get rid of them.
So what if
We've
you
got some-
preface, what if you preface this, again, we've got 9, 10, and 11. What if you preface this with saying, these storm events are significant. Here are some of the issues that that exacerbate
Exacerbate.
exacerbate these ongoing issues, including beaver dams. Okay.
Yeah,
And the what do you want to call the release of aquatic invasive species to other water bodies. And just let's construct a list and have, are you aware of these? And then put in the open-ended, what do you suggest? What affects you personally in your watershed, and what would you suggest for mitigation? So those that are affected by beavers will say, take the dams out, you know. Those that are affected by aquatic invasive species might have a different response. So
I like that. Yeah.
okay.
That also plays into the idea of educating people about what's going on.
Exactly.
Precisely. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now that I've got a chance to see the questions, and again, sorry that I'm kind of slow to get here, but I think for Crooked Lake, a lot of these aren't concerns, which, and that doesn't mean these are really important for several of the lakes. I'm wondering for us, it would, and so again, I'm not saying that these questions are really good to have for us, and I don't know if it would be included in the survey. If this is what you're trying to get at. I was really concerned about the contaminants, nutrient levels coming into the lake, how water quality suffered immensely from mid-August on to where the water just wasn't that pleasant to swim in, or for recreation. It was very, very cloudy. I wondered about the nutrient content that was coming in because of the storm. So I'm wondering, just because this really addresses the property levels and drinking water, I'm concerned about the lake water quality itself.
I agree. And I think also, and to include in that, the water quality itself, and we can say nutrients, as well as sedimentation.
And
Because,
Sedimentation as well, because it's
yeah.
the brown water that you're talking about, really.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's in the brown water. and I want to know. I want to know if there's something we can do about it.
You can bet there's phosphorus in there and other nutrients, and
Yeah.
probably at the time of that storm, we know there were some bacteria coming in, and
Right,
if it's off of
and
the ag
oftentimes
fields.
if you get a pulse of nutrients, you might get an immediate response where you've now got bioavailable phosphorus that you didn't have prior to that. It'll stimulate a little bit of a phytoplankton bloom, and that's pretty typical because they're living on the nutrients that are available through the summer and sort of a steady state, and all of a sudden you add this pulse of nutrients, it'll stimulate some autotrophic activity, some phytoplankton growth, and that's what you're seeing.
There was a really good study on, I want to get back to the survey, but there was a really good study done by John Halfman at the Finger Lakes Institute on Owasco Lake, and he really honed in on what happened in August on Owasco Lake. And they've got monitors all over the place. Some of those monitors were just washed out. That had never occurred before. And he referred to this as an atmospheric river event. And that's the first time I'd heard it referred to as that.
That term is becoming much more common. And again, talking about grant money, maybe we want money to put in monitors.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we can show, that people are seeing these things going on through the survey, then we might have what we need in order to ask for the monitors to monitor our water. And also, if there's some way in these questions we can talk about buffers and how we can improve our buffers just on people's property, we might also be able to get money to pay for some of that work to be done too.
So I'm guessing that looking at 9, 10, and 11, as we're talking through this, that we probably will turn that into a question that's pretty comprehensive. And maybe we can toss that around and look at it as a group. and set and put in our piece as to what we feel is important or missing or in that manner, especially relating to each of our lakes, because we've said that from the start, they're all different. Even though we're so close to each other, we have different issues. So does that make sense to folks to address it that way?
So
I think
maybe
so.
we'll, oh, go ahead, Amy. Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, so I'm not like sciencey oriented, but like as a mom and someone who I'm a teacher, so I'm always thinking about safety and things like that. I think from an education perspective too, and educating lake residents perspective, that kind of guidelines as to what you're supposed to do after one of these storms. Like we had people go out water skiing in that brown water, and there's like logs coming up, there's lost shovels from years past coming up, floating, and I'm like just waiting for someone to get really hurt. And some of the people that have lived here forever know that, but I didn't grow up here, I don't know that. So I can only imagine that there are a lot of other people that don't know that as well. And I think even if it's not included in this type of question, that eventually that should be a part of the education piece as well. Does that make
I think
sense?
it's important to add. I think that's a really good important
stormwater
part.
plan.
Okay.
Jim, can you repeat what you were saying?
I was gonna say, that's a good segue into our next, the stormwater response plan,
Definitely.
Okay.
right? The communication, that's all, the biggest part about that plan is communication during the event, making sure people know. Colleen, you did a great job of keeping people informed. And we didn't have anybody on the water. Everybody's very respectful of it. And it's not just health reasons, because there might be bacteria or floating logs or whatever, but it's also to protect the property, because the water's high. If you're creating wakes, you're going to be damaging property.
Exactly.
Lake damage.
Right. And that was a major concern here as well. And I think some of the residents that have been here forever, it made them mad. And I'm thinking, I bet 9 out of 10 people that went out in that water had no idea. I wasn't going to let my kids in it because I didn't know what was floating in it. But, they don't necessarily know. And I think sometimes that lifelong residents forget about teaching people the rules and etiquette of the lake. So I think that's an important.
We also have people that do VRBOs and things like that. So how do we get the information to those folks as well? I'm going to ask if we can move on, because we're, moving up towards 7 o'clock.
Number 12, I think, is an important question, but I'm not sure people would know if they're in a flood zone unless they are required to have insurance because they're getting a mortgage. If they don't need a mortgage, they will not be asked, to get flood insurance.
Right.
So maybe they should look into it. And maybe what we can do there, Kim, is add the map locator for flood zones so that people can look. Okay.
Yep.
And then they'll see, I don't know, they can go to that locator and then answer, no, I don't, but maybe I should.
Can I ask, why are we interested in knowing that? Why are we interested in knowing if the respondent lives in a flood zone?
I think you felt that it was important. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I think you thought it was important to have information about whether or not people were in flood zones and whether they chose to optionally or not carry insurance. And Tom's asking, why would we need to know that?
Well, maybe it's just a piece of our outreach efforts too.
Okay.
As well. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we do with that information either. And if we're trying to limit the number of questions, maybe that's one.
Okay.
I mean, FEMA is all over this. I mean, I carry way too much flood insurance for the 2 properties I have, so.
Is that publicly available information? Would we be able to find out who is?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's almost asking a question
Absolutely.
we can get from other sources.
Right.
Yeah.
We can definitely get that information from other sources.
You know, we could even just put it down at the bottom as a, are you in a flood zone? Check this map, you know, and leave it at that. And put the FEMA link in there.
So to wrap up this, Amy and I and whomever would like to add to it are going to modify it based on today. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the last 2 or 3 questions and talk about, you know, stormwater events can exacerbate certain conditions, and we can put water quality, Seth, that you were talking about, sedimentation, you know, etiquette on the lake. We can add some things that were sort of brainstormed out of that dialogue and just put check all that apply. And then we'll throw it back out to us. Who needs it by Friday? Did somebody need it by Friday?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
because Saturday morning we have a meeting and we'd like to be able to say this link, this survey is available.
So I'd be happy to work on it. My kids left, so I'll play with it afterwards, Amy, and get it out to everyone to look at. And that'll give us a little bit more time tomorrow to play a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay.
That's,
Colleen,
that's perfect.
yeah,
Thank you both.
Get it
Thank you all. That was
can you
great.
get
Thanks,
it into
Colleen.
Google Drive so that we have access to it?
Now I saw how you guys got to it. Yep, I'll do that.
All right, I'm gonna.
And then once we've got the, it's very easy to input into SurveyMonkey.
Yeah.
So that doesn't take long at all once we've figured out the wording.
Sounds good.
Okay. So, thank you, everyone. I want to move on just really quickly to the work that Jim has done.
And this is just a straw man. I sent it around. I think it's up on the Google Drive site, right? If somebody can.
It
put that up.
is, yeah, I put it up there. And this is, here we go.
Yeah, and this is just my musings last weekend. So there's a lot of introduction, sort of, this is part of the education process. You know, background, who we are, stormwater runoff, the impacts, we can describe those and lay those out. And I thought something with regard to sort of a need, you know, why do we need this type of prepared plan? You can move down. Let me just go over it real quick.
Sure.
You know, we had this big storm event. We had wastewater treatment plant was threatened with inundation, road closures, road washout. We need a coordinated response and communication plan, and then lay out the plan objectives. Again, these are my thoughts, and I'm welcome any kind of comment to it. But where I view this is we need some sort of a rapid and coordinated response to these large-scale rainfall events to ensure the health and safety of the Kettle Lake residents. That's the primary reason.
Right.
But there's some
Yep.
corollary objectives there to protect property, preserve and protect water quality, et cetera. And then the storm response itself, I was just thinking, you know, what do we need to do if this is going to be a plan, and we need some sort of identification or early warning system. What are the storm criteria? At what point do we say we start to get nervous? Who's going to monitor that? Are we going to have different threat levels that, okay, this is coming in, this is going to be, I hate to use the you know, red, orange, green kind of threat level, but something like that. And how do we monitor that?
Yeah.
You know, tributary and stream monitoring, is there outlet and dam monitoring, lake elevation monitoring, wastewater treatment plant monitoring? How do we monitor those threats? Is it, you know, just looking at a USGS gauge that's in an adjacent watershed, which got a long history, and we can understand the relationship between, you know, that USGS gauge and the flows that we see here? They're going to be pretty similar, so we can set triggers based on, you know, data that the USGS is already providing in real time. We have weather forecasts and the like. And then we get into sort of threat communication. How do we, you know, how do we communicate that? Okay, we got a storm coming, people, you know, here's the things you need to do. And I left a lot of this blank. I want people to just feel free to add to it. And then look at roles and responsibilities for the Federation, essentially the clearinghouse for information to the individual lake coordinators. What are the forms and types of communication we want to use? The individual lake association, you know, how do you want to monitor your system specifically? How do you gonna outreach to members? Again, forms and types of communication. And then for homeowners, have something that, gives them some responsibility. You should monitor the weather as well and make sure you've got emergency contact information, emergency supply kit, and prepare your home and property if the threat level rises to a point where, we're raising the flag. So that people can, pull in their floatables, pull in, those things that can become hazard if they're washed into the lake. And then, there's probably more to this. I kind of ran out of steam last Sunday, but when we were talking earlier, one of the things we could probably do is how do we monitor the system themselves sort of post event? We all have the CSLAP volunteers, and maybe we've got some bottles set aside where we have a specific plan that once it's safe, we can go out and collect some data and do that periodically to sort of be able to wave the green flag again when things are back. We've got lower water levels, lower bacteria counts, et cetera, that we can we can communicate to people that we're now out of the woods, so to speak. Anyway, those are just my musings. That's my thought of what a response plan might look like. And I'm open to other suggestions and other things. And I think if we write this up, we want to keep it pretty simple. We want something that is effectively communicated to folks, not a lot of prose, necessarily a lot of bullets, and maybe an appendix for each lake, which is the communication plans for each lake, because it's going to be different. I don't know how the other lakes communicate. We know how we do on Tully, and who are the points of contact and that sort of thing.
I want to say, I think this is outstanding as a start. I think it's great work.
I do too. I think it's wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Jim.
All right, my work's done. You guys, I'll leave you the first part.
I have just an idea to propose it to the group. What was going through my mind is the concept of mutual assistance among the Kettle Lakes. If one of the lakes really needs help with something, that a system of mutual help or getting volunteers or something. I just thought that would really represent the reason that we're all together now, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just suggest to add that as a discussion. I don't have this, I don't have that planned out in my head at all, but I just like the concept. Okay.
We did also talk about how we might have this response plan that we give to Preble and we give to Tully, because they are the immediate response. They're the people who will actually come if there is a problem.
Right, and in there we can identify the point of contact. Let's say the wastewater treatment plant operator.
Mm-hmm.
Or the town mayor, or if there's some trigger that they say, yeah, I got to call Colleen, and then she'll, start the rest of the communication. So we need to have some of those specifics in those communication plans.
And I add to that the Department of Health for the two counties that we need to be able to approach with more immediacy. When I called Cortland, it wasn't even on their radar for these issues. So this is a pamphlet we can share with our county agents as well. Soil and water, for sure, to let them know what we're doing, and any others. That's a list that we can start with, I think.
Yeah.
This is something just shows that I just don't know, but I've seen things from the town where they might take the sand that goes in the roads, and people have said, I don't know this is a fact, that they push it into creek beds that becomes sediment when there's a major event, goes into the lake. So are there actions by the towns that could exacerbate or mitigate storm events? So preventative stuff.
That's exactly right. And even just the
Yeah.
culvert cleaning that's done, if we monitor, how that's done, that a lot of times storm events are exacerbated by, clogged drainage swells. You see
Yeah.
them on the side of the road digging it out. If we monitor that and make sure that that's on a proper schedule, there's a clear, path for the water to find its way.
So maybe when we're thinking about creating a user-friendly, whether it's a pamphlet that can be uploaded to a tab in a website, perhaps be presented at some town meetings. We originally talked about sort of the aspect of prevention, mitigation, and real-time action. So
Mhm.
that under real-time action, these would be the contacts. This is where information will be shared. Under mitigation, it could be things like buffering at the wastewater treatment plant, et cetera, et cetera. Under prevention, it could be things not only that we can do at our property level, but maybe the town of Tully can stop throwing crap here and there. So. anyway.
And I do know that in the upper Susquehanna River Basin, the coalition and others are really working hard, and Conservation Alliance, really working hard to do the proper things with the department, the highway department, so that they don't necessarily go and just gouge out to make these very steep and deep waterways that just, move the water even faster.
Right.
And cause more gouging and scouring, but they have other ways to mitigate that with infrastructure, green infrastructure and so forth.
Right,
And even
right.
one woman at Cornell, Rebecca, who's working on ditch remediation extensively throughout that region. I don't know what's being done up north. I
Right.
don't
And
really
some
know.
of the things that they're considering on Skinny Atlas Lake, who,
Mhm.
remember in 2017, they had a huge rainfall event. And they had a huge harmful algal bloom, even though they have very low nutrient concentrations. They're focusing in on stream modifications, setting up some retention basins,
Yeah.
and trying to capture that first flush and try to clean it out a little bit, some sedimentation that can occur before it enters the lake. And those are things that we should be pushing for.
Absolutely. And Skinny Atlas is the jewel, so it always gets the funding and it gets the work done.
Well, they've done
Right
a lot of
away,
that funding
so.
themselves. They've
Okay,
got
yeah.
some moneyed people around the lake. So
Well, that's true too. And
Yeah,
they have
They've
some very
got a $2
knowledgeable
million
people.
mansion on Skinny Atlas Lake, and you can't swim in it for 8 weeks out of the summer. I imagine you're
so would it be too edgy to also be thinking about developing a map showing where the culverts are that we want to keep an eye on for each one of the lakes? I mean, none of our lakes are all that large. And if we knew exactly where those culverts were, we can go to Preble and Tully and say, culvert number 1 through 10, what are you guys doing? Have you made sure that these are all taken care of?
Yeah, Kim, I know that Amanda at Soil and Water down in Cortland, she works on culverts all the time.
Right.
So we can talk with her and
Yeah.
and Mark Berger. I know he'd have that conversation with us too. So, and they've got the maps. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay, we are 7:05. I don't know if you're hungry or you're tired or.
So I'm just going to ask kind of a follow-up question. So the survey, I think maybe with some working on it tonight and modifications tomorrow, I think you'll have at least a good product, Kim, for your meeting when you have that. But I'm wondering, based on this response plan that Jim made and what we've talked about, maybe the idea of making it into some type of pamphlet, what would be the next steps? Should we add and embellish what Jim currently has? Maybe looking at the 3 umbrellas, prevention, mitigation, and real-time action or something like that, and seeing how that plan fits into that possible maybe trifold flyer? Or what do we think? Or do we want to have a subcommittee of this group work on it, or what would work best?
My personal opinion is Jim's got a great document started.
Right.
I'd really like to see us, if we can use comments, if you can go into the Google Doc page and you can add your comments, then we can work from those.
Right.
And it's going to
and I
take a
think-
while for us to put this together, but I think maybe that's a place to start if everybody agrees.
Yeah, and I think the product here is going to be 10 or 12 page plan.
Oh,
And then the pamphlet comes from the plan,
Correct.
which is a broader distribution. But the plan itself, which will be signed by the presidents of the different the lake associations, is something you can lay on, Soil and Water Conservation's desk. You can lay on, the mayor of Tully's desk, and so it becomes a vehicle for communicating that, hey, we take this seriously, and here's our plan, and we need your help, and you're involved in these points.
right.
So,
And
But the pamphlet will be the larger distribution.
Right.
People recognize there's a plan out there, there's people working on this. Here's where you can tune in if we see a storm coming. That's a great idea, Colleen. Just kind of get that, something that everybody can kind of,
Yeah.
A magnet to post on your refrigerator.
Yep.
so, yeah, I 100% agree. And I still think we need to be thinking about grant money and I'm just not exactly sure what for at this point. But I know like the small watershed grant, I think is due April 21st. I think we have to do it in connection with soil and water conservation. Am I right, Tarky, on that?
yeah, we do. But this is a good point. I know that Upper Susquehanna Coalition gets funding for the booklets that we put out, the newsletters that we put out. So there is outreach and education funding available, even like $5,000, that would help us to put this project together and get the
Yep.
printing done and things like that.
Yep, and yeah, I mean, I looked through the small watershed grant, and I've definitely highlighted some places that are talking about community resilience. And I would think we fit in beautifully there. But most of these grants are for $75,000 or more.
And we're not looking
doing
at
that.
hard
We have to
structures at this
bundle.
point. We don't have anything to look for at this
No.
point, except outreach and education. So maybe when if you were going to be the liaison, Kim, if you talk to Amanda,
Yeah,
and say, maybe we just need $5,000 for this outreach effort that we're planning.
okay, I will get in touch with her tomorrow.
Okay,
Okay.
super. Does that make sense to everybody else?
Yeah, and maybe because we've used them before, maybe they can even have somebody help us do it. Like create the pamphlet, I mean, it doesn't
Amanda
have-
might like it so much she wants to do it herself.
I know, let her. And the thing
know.
is, I mean, it doesn't have to be a permanent one forever. We could modify it over the, volume 1. I get one every year in Florida when hurricane season comes, and they always slightly modify it for each year. But it might be a way for people just to know that this is what happened in 21. We were all blindsided, and we're moving forward from there. And if it's better than nothing right now.
Colleen, I would add to that I would not be opposed to getting a professional to make the trifold brochure for us.
Right.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we have some help there. We can go to some different,
Yeah.
whether it's Syracuse University contacts that we have, or
Yeah.
even Soil and Water has folks that they work with. Yeah, we can certainly do that. I agree.
Colleen, do you have a copy of those that you get in Florida that we could see?
I will look for one that I usually keep in my storm kit. I keep a kit here for people that rent my house. I think I have it in there. It's a paper. It looks like a newspaper. It's not
Okay.
like a flyer. It's like a several page newspaper, but I'll take pictures of that.
And Seth, I agree with you 100%. The idea of asking for money for water testing and monitoring.
It's not cheap, we're doing some extra stuff, and it does cost a lot. And I really would like to see the impacts and just get data on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will tell you that you're not going to be able to depend on CSLAP for anything beyond what we do,
Right.
just as a routine,
And
unfortunately.
something this group, as a topic for a future meeting, we may want to combine some of our resources and get together some hot kits, some routine monitoring type equipment, maybe even rent a space somewhere and be able to do some wet testing. It's not, some of this stuff is not very difficult to do. If you have a hot kit and you want to do, some probes and other things to monitor turbidity and dissolved oxygen and other things. So it'll take a little bit of time and energy to set up, but if we've got a lab established and people that are trained and understand how to use the equipment, we could deploy a little force on all the lakes.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, Jim.
I would
It is
love,
a great idea.
capacity building really is the way to go, quite frankly, because we can't keep relying on other people to do it. I mean, I'm trying to move in that direction for harmful algal bloom analysis. And I'm hopefully learning from Tarky that there's a lot we can at least begin to figure out.
Yeah.
So
And
that would-
DEC isn't going to do it for us. We
No.
do have to figure it out. They're just, if you see it, don't go in it, and we're done. I mean, it's really that at this point. But I think there are some options that we need to look at for our lakes going forward. And NICEFOL is looking at that too. So, and companies are looking at it because they know they can help as well. But they're going to also be wanting to make money on it, which makes sense. Content.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Yeah, definitely reach
Yeah.
out.
Definitely.
Okay.
We do a little bit with, what's that company? It used to be O'Brien and Gear, and now it's
Ramble.
Ramble, yeah. So we've been, well, I got the little ioscope last year, and we're going to continue with that project. And if it works, we'll see where it goes. But right now, it's just, they're taking advantage of some citizen science.
Right.
But hopefully we'll reap some of the benefits at some point.
Yeah, well, as I said, part of this small watershed grant is about becoming citizen scientists. They talk about it a lot in here.
Yeah.
It's free
Okay,
labor.
can we kind of wrap up? I'd like to see when we meet again, what date folks would like to land on to have another meeting.
This time slot works pretty good.
Okay, so
Check.
Wednesday at 6 p.m. And do you want to go 2 weeks out? 3 weeks out?
Could we do 3 weeks out? Could
I
we-
feel like we should probably do 2 weeks to keep our momentum going to
Okay.
some extent, but it depends on how the group feels.
So June 6th would be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, April 6th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
April 6th would be 2 weeks. That's probably okay for me. Or, so this time period is 6 to 7. Okay, you want to do
Do
that?
folks feel like 2 weeks out is good? Or,
Yeah,
I
that
do.
works.
okay, all right,
think
so
we
we'll go
gotta-
for
We gotta-
Wednesday, April 6th. And we'll see Colleen in June. No.
6 o'clock. I got it.
6 p.m. Okay,
April 6th.
and we're just going to use the same link. It's in the Google Drive, so we'll just go right to it. Okay.
Tom, you mentioned you have a friend that is in the water quality monitoring business or a laboratory. I mean, if you can gather some information prior to that meeting, I hate to put too much on our plate, but just get some ideas floating around.
Yeah, just an idea. I'll talk to him, just get a feeler of, what he may be able to help us out with, or even if we could, like even use some of his equipment or whatever, but.
Yeah, and getting a good sense of what equipment is appropriate for us to be using for the kinds of analysis that we're looking to get. Yeah.
Is there anything specific you guys have in mind? I can ask him about what specific tests we want or
I would
nutrients.
just say, what is available out there that we can use with probes? Probes like YSI and some of the other manufacturers have pretty specific probes. We might be able to educate some people on its use and maintenance. And that's the big deal, is maintaining the equipment.
And some of them are really difficult to maintain. And and some of them are easier to use. And I don't have the names in front of me, but I know folks on my board who would have that as well. But it would be great, Tom, to get a start there and then see and move forward.
One thing that I dropped the ball on, but I'm on this like white on rice. I went to some workshop in October with Professor Ruth Richardson. Apparently Professor Ruth Richardson is at Cornell University. She's with the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at Atkinson Center for a Sustainable Future. And she has a scope program, and it's really reasonably priced, and it connects to your phone. And I reached out to her, and then life got in the way, but I'm going to reach back out to her. It's probably small time citizen science, not quite as analytical as the types of scopes that you all are talking about, but it might be able to give us like a quick brush stroke of what we're looking at. So I'll reach back out to her because they were reasonably priced, and they provide the training and the support to do it. So I'll reach out to her.
That sounds good, Colleen. I mean,
Yeah.
the more information we have, the more
Better.
we have to
Right.
work with and
Right.
go for
I
it.
have one last question. Are there any fish or organisms that we want to keep in the Chesapeake Bay watershed that would be part of a grant, that would be turbidity might cause a problem to, or anything else like that with our water? I'm just asking, I don't know.
That might be more of a stream issue, but in our lakes, we're already facing the loss of cold water fish. So,
Yeah, but this isn't going to help cold water fish at all.
Anybody going to the New York State Federation meeting at the end of April?
I hope you are, Jim.
I'll be there.
I'm
Are you
going.
going?
Yeah.
Actually, we're paying, COFOCA's paying for, I'm the president, so I have to be there. But Colleen has won an award, Lake Stewart Award. So
Well, I'm going to try to make it.
oh,
So,
great. That'll be great. That'll be good.
And we've got a virtual option, right?
I don't.
You
think
know,
there is
there's
a
only
virtual-
a virtual option. It's limited, Seth. The conference itself only has one main hall that they provide a virtual option for. So the smaller sessions won't be
Oh.
available,
Okay.
except by PowerPoint, because we'll put those up afterwards. So, and the general meeting, as members, I don't know how else to do it except to make it a virtual meeting. So we will have that. But they have technicians there, and so I'm counting on them. But it's just not going to be a lot. It's our first conference since 2019, and we're still doing this, and we're going to hand out hand sanitizers and masks, and just because we're not through this yet. So, yeah.
Okay.
We'll see. But if you can't go, what there will be posted. I mean, what we can record will be posted, and the PowerPoints will be available. So
Where is it, Turkey?
Lake George.
Oh, it's in Lake George.
Okay, are we good?
Good.
we're
All right.
good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
to see
you. Thank
everyone.
you. See you in 2 weeks.
Oh,
All right.
Amy, adorable.
I know. Hi.
Oh, hello. Got
Hi
two
there.
cuties back there.
Night, everyone.
So
Take
long.
care.
Hi, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Send me the Turkey, send me the file, please.
I will. I'll send it to you. I'm going to send it to everybody, actually. So,
That's great.
Turkey,
as well.
did you
Yes.
send the last storm video to everyone? Because I usually keep the storm meetings on our website, and I only have the first one. I didn't get the second one, but maybe I just didn't get it, or maybe I forgot to.
I don't know if I sent it to you. I don't
Okay.
remember.
Do you want me to?
And I
mean-
won't remember.
I mean, is there anything said that we don't want up, or should we?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that's okay. I would say look through it. But the main reason that I record these is for our use.
For
and
our
so
minutes and
for our
everything.
meetings.
Yeah.
Let's keep it that. Let's
Okay.
do that. And if
Okay.
somebody asks you,
Okay.
then maybe share it. Yeah.
Okay.
How's that sound?
All right.
Okay.
That sounds good. Take
All
care.
right. Take care. You too.